All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Well, we are about to take you on the topic earlier promoted, and that's the war against drug abuse in Nigeria. But before we do that, let's take a background report.
The global trade in codeine, tramadol, and heroin is no longer a new trend at the international stage, and in efforts to control that trade, there have been reports of escalating arrests of drug smugglers, large-scale drugs in West African sub-region. Similarly, notwithstanding this growing concern over the rate of drug trafficking and abuse, stated law enforcement agencies to scale up their operations to curtail this global menace. Nigeria has been addressing the issue over the years. The operatives of the Nigeria Law Enforcement Agency (NDLEA) have taken a pragmatic step in making arrests of drug cartels and drug barons across the country to ensure zero tolerance for drugs and abuse. The agency further identified syndicates that peddle these drugs across Nigeria to other West African countries. Statistics have shown that between 2018 and 2019, about 14.3 million Nigerians aged between 15 and 64 years were engaged in drug use, and the situation has further worsened since then. Statistics also indicate that Nigeria faces a drug epidemic, with alarming reports that drug barons sell drugged cookies to even preschool and nursery school pupils. From 2020 to 2021, media reports indicate that the NDLEA made cash and drug seizures valued at over 100 billion naira. Over 8,634 drug traffickers and 5 major drug barons were arrested. Operatives of NDLEA seized more than 2.7 million kilograms of assorted illicit drugs, filed over 5,000 drug cases in court, and secured over 1,630 convictions. So far, such record in the history of the fight against drugs is seen as unprecedented. What are the security implications of illicit drug trafficking for Nigeria, and what is the track record of the law enforcement agency currently? Other issues and challenges to tame this scourge will be discussed by guests on the program.
Joining us on the studios now to discuss this issue, let's welcome Femi Babafemi, the Director of Media and Advocacy, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA.
Thank you. Good morning.
Also here with us in the studios, Chuks Akamadu, President, Center for Ethical Rebirth among Nigerian youth. Chuks, pleasure to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me. Good morning, Nigeria.
Well, let's introduce Professor Modisola Adeye, Director General of the National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control. She joins us via Zoom. Good morning, madam, and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning. Thank you.
All right, let's begin the conversation first with the NDLEA, which is the agency that has been reporting week after week in recent times the arrests of drug traffickers and drug gangs and all that, sometimes with the amount of the drugs running into hundreds, if not billions of naira. Femi Babafemi, is this for real or is just media hype?
Absolutely, it's far from fiction. Is the reality of our situation in the country today, and that is why, in most cases, because it's not impossible that you will have some doubts out there. That's why, in most cases, we do attach video clips and pictorial evidence to our statements when we are releasing statements, so that our people can actually know the reality of the drug situation we have in the country. It's actually real, and by the grace of God, we believe with the ongoing effort, which is has been termed offensive action at the agency, Nigeria is moving towards winning the war by the grace of God.
All right, NDLEA has been in existence and has been operational for several decades now. But in recent times, we're beginning to see several announcements, as my colleague put it, on how many gangs have been busted or traffickers have been busted and arrested. You're also applying on undercover men, who also assist, in nailing these individuals. What is NDLEA doing differently, that has brought about this upsurge, of arrests that you have made?
I'll attribute that to a number of factors. One, with effective January last year, 2021, there was a strategic change in the leadership of the agency, which came in with a new style and approach. I did mention offensive action just now, and the leadership of Brigadier General Muhammad Buba Marwa came on board and made some changes. Fortunately, the same set of officers and men are still the same people doing the work in the agency today. So, one, leadership style and approach. Then two, the support coming from, because we have to note it that without the support of the president himself, there may not be much that the chief executive can do. So we have to recognize and acknowledge the fact that the support coming from President Muhammadu Buhari himself has significantly affected and encouraged the leadership and the personnel of the agency. Beyond that, one of the first things General Marwa did when he came on board was to recognize the fact that if he has to succeed on this job, he needs these officers and men, and he took time to identify what were the issues bogging them down. He discovered one, there had been promotion issues, there had been issues of allowances and related benefits that had not been paid for years. For some, as far back, for instance, even some officers were not promoted for 20 years. And so at the end of a review exercise, over 75% of the workforce were promoted in one single exercise. Then those who lost, the officers who died in active duty, whose burial expenses were not paid for since 2014, he also sought the support of the president, paid all of that. Then brought in some entitlements, paid those that have been owed some entitlement benefits for years, and all of these motivated the workforce. And so they were ready to follow the instructions of their chief executive. And one major thing that he also did was to change the operational maxim philosophy of the agency to offensive action, meaning taking the war to the doorstep of the cartels, the barons themselves, meaning that the agency, the officers and men will not have to wait till incidents are reported to them. They have to, through intelligence, follow the trail and take the battle to the door. And that's why today you see officers and men of the NDLEA going deep into forest. In some cases, they have to trek for 4 or 5 hours on foot to get deep into those forests to be able to destroy hundreds of hectares of cannabis farms, because that is the major psychoactive plant that Nigeria is contending with today, with over 10.6 million persons abusing that particular. So we have to take this battle to them deep inside the forest. And for those who had thought Nigeria would be easy for them to come in and go out, export these substances through a partnership with stakeholders in Nigeria. Stakeholders, I'm talking of other law enforcement agencies, other sister agencies, and most importantly, again, our partners out there. Through intelligence and work relationship, we've been able to make that difficult for them. Today in Nigeria, it's extremely difficult for anybody to bring in drugs through our airports, land borders, or the seaports because of the kind of operational strategies and activities of the agency.
Well, I'm tempted to still stay with you, Femi, so that before we bring in the other two guests. You mentioned cannabis as probably the most abused psychoactive substance in the country today. But what are the other kinds of hard drugs, so to speak, get into the country or get produced in the country and get to be distributed or exported from Nigeria?
Yeah, beyond cannabis, one of those drugs that has also come top in interdiction efforts activities are the opioids, the pharmaceutical opioids, tramadol. And recently, we got a breakthrough in the arrest of one of those big people that have been behind that particular importing that particular drug into the country. Like we did say some days ago, in one particular instance, somebody brought in tramadol, 2 container loads worth over 22 billion naira. Just imagine what that would do in a country in just one particular instance. We may still discover more, but that was what we discovered. Just imagine what that would do to the children of people out there. That's huge. Beyond tramadol, you also have codeine. Recently, also up north, I think in Sokoto, we work with another security agency. We intercepted millions of bottles of codeine that they couldn't bring that consignment through that consignment was actually brought into Benin Republic here, which has shares border with Lagos. Easily it could have come in through Lagos, through any of the routes in Lagos, but unfortunately they couldn't go through that. So they had to travel, they had to take that consignment through the road to Niger, and from Niger cross to Sokoto through the land border. But as they entered Sokoto, trying to find those that would buy the consignments, we intercepted the communication and were able to locate where the consignment was warehoused. We seized that. That's something that could also have done a lot of damage to our young people out there. Beyond codeine, you also have some other opioids like Swinol, like diazepam, quite a number of them. All of these, again, one strong one is the methamphetamine. The one, meth, the one they call Mpurumiri in the southeast. Where that at a point that was being imported into the country, but now for some years now, our people have been taught by those who brought the business in how to cook. And recently, I think in Imo, just some few weeks ago, we arrested one of the cooks, one of those that prepares this. So we have that meth, which is also a very strong one that is wrecking lives, and we're making it difficult for them not only to distribute within Nigeria, but to also export, because usually they have a very big market for that in South Africa and some parts of Europe, but we made it very difficult. They have tried all manner of tricks, all manner of concealments, concealing these in foodstuffs, in soap, in drinks, everything. See, there was still a consignment that was intercepted at the Lagos airport. That we are yet to release that. I think about yesterday or so. Yesterday, yeah. Still a consignment. Hidden in energy drinks. All modes of consumer. But then we've made it very difficult for them through intelligence and the kind of eagle eye officers that we have at those points.
But does it mean that we now have local producers or manufacturers, if you like,
of
of
methamphetamine.
methamphetamine. And again, how do they have access, to substances that are precursor, for the production of methamphetamine?
Yes, that is a major issue, and I'm sure the DG of NADA, Prof, would probably share some more light on that. But what we have discovered is, there are precursor chemicals that are used for some other legitimate stuffs. But then these criminal elements who get approval to import these chemicals divert them to the black market. And that's exactly what played out in the case of the big baron we have at the moment. You see people obtaining approval or permit for a particular thing, using that as a cover to import some other illegal things. So we have that's a major thing, and we are following all the trace, especially working with the other stakeholders to ensure that we know who gets what approval, what these approvals are meant for, and ultimately what they are used for, so that we'll be able to know if you get approval to bring in chemical for A, and eventually we're able to determine, follow the trade that the chemical you brought in was diverted to be used for the production of B, then you have to answer questions.
All right, Femi, thank you very much. Let's bring in now the Director General of NAFDAC. That's Professor Mojisola Adeyeye. We earlier introduced her. She's with us via Zoom. Prof, the more one listens to experts in managing the issue of illicit drug presence, use, or trafficking in the country, the more one realizes, for instance, that the pharmaceutical industry is most probably heavily linked to all of this. And ordinarily, this will be part of your remit in NAFDAC. What do you know at this time about the abuses going on in the pharmaceutical industry that may very well be aiding the drug problem in Nigeria?
Good morning. Thank you very much. First, the pharmaceutical industry is not heavily linked now with narcotics or psychoactive substances. There are few bad eggs in the industry and outside the country, just like what Mr. Babafemi of NDLEA just said about trafficking through land borders. So I just want us to get that very clear, because for the past 4.5 years, NAFDAC has been very hard on pharmaceutical industry. April 30, 2018, about 4 or 5 months after I resumed, BBC aired the footage about codeine abuse and distribution, and immediately I shut down 3 companies. And since that time, we have not issued permit for importation of codeine. In fact, we seized 1.5 million bottles, or we recalled, we didn't seize. We recalled 1.5 million bottles of codeine that were in the storage or warehouses of the different companies. And it took a while. The government had to pay because there were only few bad eggs among the companies. So the government has to pay for the destruction. We did the destruction. It took a while because of COVID. We did the destruction about 6 months ago with Lagos State, LASEPA. But let me just go back quickly, 2018. My first 6 months here as DG NAFDAC, I was running after Tramadol. I was shocked about the prevalence of Tramadol. September 2018, I got a tip. I didn't know that NDLEA also got it. This is 2018. This is pre General Marua's time, that 31 containers of tramadol are coming to Nigeria and NAFDAC must stop it. I thought it is a prank. So I used another number to call the person, and the person said, it is true. NAFDAC, go after them. I didn't know that NDLEA was also called. We just responded to the tip. And our staff kept vigil for more than 2 months at the port. We apprehended 25 containers of tramadol. NAFDAC apprehended 25 containers of tramadol. When they knew that the port was hot, because NAFDAC now has been brought back after 7 years of being removed from the port. When these bad merchants knew that the port was hot, we have been tracking. We were tracking all the containers on the sea. We have a software that we can use to track whatever containers are coming into the country. When they knew the port was hot, one container turned back and went to a West African country. We followed that container by calling our ambassador there and said, please wait for whoever is coming to pick up. Another 4 containers went to Ghana. They turned back on the sea. We were looking at them. Ghana said, we have our colleagues in Ghana, and we told them, send them back to where they are supposed to come. So those 4 containers now went to the first West African country, where the 1 container is. The 25 containers, of course, all in the, under the purview of customs. This was 2018, September. 2019 was now when we are talking of destruction. So we did a joint destruction of many containers with customs. We actually called NDLEA at that time to come and witness our inspection of each of the 25 containers. That was about a year after. So many of the containers were destroyed, but because of COVID, we and the customs couldn't finish the destruction of the containers. But a lot of the containers were destroyed. The 5 containers of tramadol. In fact, what I heard is that the agents will collect 1 billion on each container. That is how much destruction this will have caused our people if NAFDAC didn't step up. It was later that I heard that NDLEA was also informed. But that is pre-Marua. When government creates act to do one thing or the other, they mandate different agencies for different things. NDLEA is mandated to go after psychoactive drugs, whether cannabis or synthetic or whatever. We were created to go after medicines, vaccines, of course, medicines, chemicals, food, cosmetics, packaged water. So we have different functions. I'm talking of primary functions, because government called us to stop 31 containers. It is only 1 container that we couldn't account for. And that container had a bad container labeling. So the 5 containers are still there, and we're going to take care of those because nobody has touched it, or touched them rather. So to talk about what NAFDAC does is work very well. For the past 4.5 years, we have been strengthening our own system, because if the system is not strengthened, all sorts of things will happen. You can imagine thousands and thousands of products that we have to watch out for in terms of counterfeiting. I'm talking of normal medicines, regular medicines, foods, chemicals. Dr. Babafemi talked about chemicals.
You have made your point, Prof. We understand really that NAFDAC has a lot, primary assignments, allotted to it, and you have done well from what you have explained. But I want to ask you this: what role does NAFDAC really play in the process of approving license or licenses, for pharmaceutical companies who engage in this importation? Does NAFDAC has a role there to determine who gets what in terms of licensing these companies for importation of any form of chemicals or legitimate ones, chemicals and other medicines, from other parts of the world?
Yes, NAFDAC has the mandate to issue permits for chemicals. And there are three categories. One, just the regular chemicals that we use around and universities use. Another is another category. The third category is the restricted chemicals. The restricted chemicals, we work with Office of National Security Advisor to issue permit and to monitor. But what Mr. Babafemi said is about diversion is very, very important. So what we have stepped up now in NAFDAC is inspection. You said you get this chemical for this particular activity or manufacturing or whatever, we're going to monitor you. We had a stakeholders meeting about 2 weeks ago in Isolo, and I told them, we will monitor you. Talking of staff, we need more staff. I'm so proud of what Mr. Babafemi said about the granularity of the problem. When staff are not motivated, they are not promoted. I'm not condoning bad behavior. The motivation is not there, unfortunately. That was what I inherited. That was why they called NAFDAC and NDLEA. So in terms of chemical permits, we have stepped up the game more to watch out for not just the restricted chemicals that we and ONSA play oversight for, but for the other groups of chemicals. Because you can use even salt, as innocuous as salt is, you can abuse salt. You can abuse chlorine. So it is now us playing, stepping up our game. And I'm so happy with what is happening with NDLEA, because NAFDAC cannot do it all. The NDLEA is doing what NDLEA is supposed to be doing for many years. And now that we have General Marwa there, we are more comforted. But let's just look at the destruction. For the containers that we destroyed, it's about 1.7 trillion naira street value. We destroy maybe every three months, four months of the year. So when we seize them, we destroy. There are some that we also pick up from the airport, just like NDLEA, but some of them, most of them are abandoned. And if they are abandoned, we cannot prosecute. But we have prosecuted so many also. But I'm very enthused with what NDLEA is doing, and also with the problem. Staff must be well compensated, at least satisfied at their job. And okay, that is part of what we are doing, not even talking of narcotics now.
Okay.
Now that our own staff get...
Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, thank you very much for the points that you have raised and the many disclosures that you have equally made. There are a number of other areas to further explore, but we're not getting back to the issue of governance of the respective agencies. Staff welfare, staff promotion issues and motivation, these are matters within the control of the managers of those particular institutions and their respective boards. And so if there had been failure in that regard, we hope that that failure will not continue. And the changes that we have seen in terms of staff motivation have also been yielding results, as both yourself and Femi have indicated. Let's come back to the studios now. Chuks Akamadu, we just to make sense of what we've been hearing and what we also been reading about. What we've been hearing this morning and what we've been reading about, some 20-something containers of tramadol, so many. I want to make sense of it. Are human beings supposed to be consuming this? Do they take it every minute?
Well, truth is that this is our reality, sad as it may be. And I'm equally frightened in the sense that it really means there is a ready market for all of this. It means there's a ready market in Nigeria for us to be having 22 billion naira worth of tramadol being shipped into this country. For her to be telling us that as far back as 2018 that they were chasing 31 containers on the sea that were trying to bet on our shores. It means there is a ready market, and that should frighten us. And that is why, for me, I think we've been doing well in the recent times as regards law enforcement. I appreciate what the NDLEA has been doing lately, and of course the complementary role of NAFDAC. But I think that the achievements so far are inadequate. Inadequate in the sense that we as a nation, we are yet to begin to harness the awareness being created by these major breakthroughs recorded by NDLEA. What am I saying? The point I'm trying to make is that at this point, all of us should be alarmed. What is the legislature doing? What is the judiciary doing? It is not a task that should be left on the hands of NDLEA and NAFDAC alone. Yes, I appreciate the fact that NDLEA is also reaching out to other law enforcement agencies, security agencies like the military, and then the police and all of that for some form of synergistic action. That is commendable. But then, where is the people, the civil society? Where is the civil society in all of this? Because we need to proceed from this point that we are at the moment and begin to enlist every major stakeholder group in this country to play equally complementary roles so that we can stem this tide. Because enforcement alone will not cut it for us. We need to get to a point where people take it upon themselves to be advocates out there to the young people of Nigeria in particular as regards why they should not engage in the consumption of narcotic and psychoactive substances. If we are able to deal with cutting down on the appetite of Nigerians for drug consumption, I can assure you enforcement will become a lot easier. Truth is that the demand is growing every day. If the demand isn't growing every day, we wouldn't have issue of supply. So how do we cut down on the appetite of Nigerians for this huge appetite of Nigerians for the consumption of narcotic, psychotropic and psychoactive substances? That's where I think we are getting it wrong. The earlier the NDLEA, the earlier the Ministry of Justice, the earlier the NAFDAC, the earlier the presidency, the earlier the National Assembly begin to realize that we need a holistic action. We need the public buy-in. It's not just about what are the respective states doing. The NDLEA Amendment Act that is before the National Assembly, why are they sitting on it? These are issues that should bother us. We need a broader spectrum of stakeholders who would look at this and begin to do. For instance, I ask, what is RATAO, Radio and Television Workers Association of Nigeria? What are they doing about drug abuse? Is drug abuse not a feature in the daily affairs of radio television workers in this country? Nigeria Bar Association, what are they doing about it? What are they doing about it? What are our religious organizations doing about it? Because this thing, is it until it consumes all of us that we'll realize that we're actually at the precipice? Because that's one area, like I said, we are yet to start harnessing the awareness being created by all of these breakthroughs. There are some state governments that have actually come out to really look at this drug abuse and consider it to be a real threat to governance, a real threat to development, a real threat to societal advancement. Zamfara State is one. Nasarawa State takes issues of drug abuse very seriously. Bayelsa State government, I'm told, is very supportive of what United Nations Office on Drug and Crime, UNODC, is doing in the country and all of that. Come on, by the time we have other states taking greater interest in this issue, and also not just states, even local government councils and all of that, the judiciary on its part should also be sensitized to realize that this is a major threat to our collective existence as a people. So when issues of drug abuse comes before a judge, it should be treated expeditiously. That way, everybody will be part and parcel of this fight against the scourge of drug abuse.
Yeah, well, I quite understand, and I believe many Nigerians do, about your submission, which has to do with enlarging the scope of the fight, against drug abuse and psychoactive drugs. And the question I want to ask you is this: in your research, because you are the president of Center for Ethical Rebirth among Nigerian youths, when it comes to drug abuse, we always point at the younger generation of Nigerians as if it's only that segment of society that is involved in drug abuse. But analysts have also shown that adults are deeply involved in it, and even in the aspect of importing these drugs. They're not youths that do that. Now, in your research, what do you find? Is it just the youths that are involved in this drug abuse, or are we talking about a larger members of society, to include the adults?
No, of course, the adults engage in it. But the truth, if you look at the demography of this country, you'll find that ours is a youthful nation. So it's only natural that quite a number of young people would be involved in it. If you look at NDLEA report, previous NDLEA reports, UNADC reports on the prevalence of drug abuse, you will find that quite a large chunk of our youth population, and then, of course, our youth population is involved in this. And then women are also taking very curious, strange interest in it. And that should worry all of us. Yes, the adult population engage in it, but the way our young people are getting involved in it should really worry us, because when we say the future of this nation, they constitute the future of the nation. So if they have inadvertently chosen to self-destruct, then there is a problem somewhere. If you look at the music video content they will have in contemporary times. But I've had cause to do a piece on that in these days, a few weeks back, and I said, I don't understand what National Film and Video Censors Board is doing. I don't understand what National Broadcasting Commission is doing as regards censoring the content of our music video these days, because they actually drug abuse promoting musical products that they churn out there, and our youth actually think, because some of these youth, most of them are very, very vulnerable. They don't know any better. They didn't think, oh, if a musician is doing this and he's living large, I too would want to do this and live that. They actually copy these things, thinking that, oh, that is the real way of doing, the correct way of doing things, without realizing that this is a contract culture that should be shown by the society. But we seem to be embracing it. And these vulnerable youth, these young adults, they don't know any better. So it is our duty as adults to protect them from this vice grip of drug abuse in the country. We really owe them a whole lot, because like I said, and of course, if you now factor in the harsh economic situation in the country, you now understand that most of these children, they don't even have the benefit of their parents being around them to dot upon them and all of that. So when they now stay, parents are being pressed down by the economic reality of the country. So they are out there working from morning till night and all of that, and some other factors put so much pressure on them. These children are left to be on their own.
Okay, Akamadu, thank you very much. In terms of response to music videos and other creative works seeking to promote drug abuse, you'll recall that some years ago, there was a song, something called Science Student or something, by Olamide, because that was struck down, and I'm sure nobody listens to that anymore. So we do hope that more of such actions will be taken. There's an aspect I would like the NDLEA official to respond to. When we hear of these drug seizures and the amounts involved, 2 containers, NDLEA reported, and you have said that this morning, worth 22 billion naira, containing tramadol beyond the prescribed levels that they should. I think it's supposed to be about 50 or 100 milligrams. This way, 200, 250, and 500. Let's take a look at it. If a container or those containers or a consignment is worth 22 billion, where did the financing for this importation come from?
Definitely.
So where did the importation of this financing come from? I'm asking this question because there's also the subtext of saying you have a license to import tramadol, or you have a license to import certain kinds of opioids. But if you are a financial institution and a client or a customer comes to you and says, I need 1 billion to import this, there are questions that ordinarily should arise. So who are those financing the importation of these drugs, whether the 22 or 33 containers that were busted in 2018 or the many seizures that you are having now? It's a point of curiosity, I think.
Absolutely. These are very deep and complex issues. As I have said earlier, which the NAFDAC DG, Prof, also corroborated, we have some elements within the system, as in within the business community. Those, they can manipulate a lot of things. Like I said, it's one thing for you to, like in the case you are mentioning, one thing for you to apply to your bank to say, I need 50 million naira to import paracetamol. It's another thing for you to indeed spend that money to import paracetamol, which in some cases, the moment there is a criminal intent, anything can happen along the line. And so, and don't also forget that these are people that have made enormous wealth under this scheme, this kind of criminal scheme, business. So they have the resources, even some without borrowing. For somebody that could bring in tramadol worth 22 billion, meaning he'll probably be fortunately, let me call with this intervention. The NDLEA of today, the new NDLEA, is not just going after the drugs, the suspects, but far beyond, going after their assets, their bank accounts, and their properties. You will be seeing in the coming weeks a lot of the properties, or you would have probably had in some recent reports of the marking of some properties of some people in our custody or that we're prosecuting. That is to take the incentive away from them, because the whole essence of doing this this kind of thing is they want to acquire wealth for their own pleasure. But then, apart from denying them these drugs, apart from denying them their freedom, we have also gone ahead to press strongly to deny them the benefits of the process of this crime. That is going after, so that because you can see quite a number of them, they don't even mind going to jail for 5 years as long as they will come back and still meet their wealth, their resources, their bank accounts still intact. But now we're taking away those bank accounts were taking away the properties they have acquired, and that's something we believe would also add to the deterrence effect we're trying to achieve.
You are taking them away. What about the proceeds of what you've taken away? Is it going to the coffers of the government?
Absolutely forfeited to the federal government of Nigeria.
All right, we're going to take a short break, but when we return, I'd like to bring in Prof, for further explanation with respect to the source of these drugs we're talking about. This is Good Morning Nigeria on the Network 7. All right, so welcome back, and thank you for staying with us up to this moment on the program. Now, we'll return to Professor Adeye of NAFDAC. Well, Madam, in the past, we've had instances, where NAFDAC was able to, establish contact with the source countries and even source companies. You may recall when we had the children's food poisoning saga in this country. Then NAFDAC has to trace the company that produced that milk, and of course the source nation had to ban that company from further production, as the case may be. Now, does NAFDAC have that capacity now, to synergize with your counterparts outside Nigeria to be able to source the companies that are also conniving with Nigerians who are importing these drugs? But I want to believe, quite frankly, that those source companies are aware that you cannot, for instance, send a container worth billions of naira of tramadol to a particular country.
Increase the volume now.
Well, we seem to have lost the audio line of Professor, who is reaching us via Zoom. And all right, let's return to her now. I'm sure she had my question.
I said myself. I said that was a very good question, actually. We have what is called clean report inspection analysts in India and China. Their function is to do pre-testing or pre-inspection of anything coming to Nigeria. It was created before my time, but there were so many loopholes there that people, and of course, NAFDAC was not at the port for 7 years, which is part of our problem, which became part of our problem. What we did was to go to China and India and read them the Riot Act, that you cannot deal with us as a country if you are bringing things that will destroy our own people. What did we do? We dropped some of the clean report inspection analysts. We chose the types of labs that will be testing the products that are coming into the country. And since that time, we have been able to stop about 85 products, some that don't have any drug in them, some that have counterfeited medicines. So in terms of sourcing, yes, we have to go to the source. What surprised me about what is happening now is the amount of tramadol that is being impounded, intercepted. Because before September 2018, India did not have tight control over psychoactive drugs getting out of their country. So at the beginning of that year, they were raining tramadol on us. It was September 2018 that the law became effective, and we had a significant drop in tramadol coming in. But I believe now they have found a way around it in India or China, where these things are coming from. So we interact with the embassies. In fact, we just sent a letter to the embassy, India embassy and China embassy, not on tramadol, but on other abuse of our system, of our drug products. We contact, the pharmaceutical company in India. We interact with them so that we will stop this or mitigate this at the source. So it is a multi-faceted approach. Mr. Akamadu just talked about holistic. The incessant strike in the universities with children, young people, having nothing to do for 1 year. Are you kidding me? That is part of the problem. Parents being friends to their children instead of parenting their children, that's part of the problem. We got a conviction from our prosecution, 5 years in jail or 170,000 naira. Who is not going to pay 170,000 naira? That is another approach or another sector that should be strengthened. Education, judiciary, legislature, NAFDAC, NDLEA, parents, church, mosque, to save our youth. It is not just one entity. NAFDAC had started Youth Against Drug Abuse, YADA, in 2018, and we were going through secondary schools. And then COVID-19 came. So we put a stop to it, and then we have started it now. About 2 months ago, NANS, National Association of Nigerian Students, came to my office. They wanted to partner with us. So we are reactivating what we started. It is multi-sectoral, so it's not just regulating the products or chemicals, it is also working with the community. So NAFDAC is looking at this multi-sectorally. But parenting is extremely important. We cannot be friends with our children. We have to be parents. When they have their children, then we become friends because they will know what we are going through, what we went through. Mosque, church, we need to wake up if we want the future of this country to be brighter than what it is now. Because it is youth, it is our youth that will be the leaders of tomorrow. So it is a multi-sectoral issue. But we are going into the source to ensure that bad medicine, narcotic medicines will not come in.
Professor,
unfortunately, they are going through different routes.
Okay.
And NDLEA and NAFDAC are there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Adeyeye. Please, very quickly, because we're getting pressed for time, I've heard the expression today, psychoactive substances. What is the difference between psychoactive substances and psychotropic substances? That's one. Secondly, a few years ago, there was the uproar about the abuse of codeine. And it was reported that Kano was the leader in the consumption of codeine. That's to say codeine laced, cough syrup laced with codeine. What is the situation now? Is codeine still commonly being abused in Nigeria? And more importantly, a number of these substances are available in patent medicine stores and even pharmacies. How is NAFDAC addressing these issues? But first, clarify for us psychotropic and psychoactive substances.
Psychoactive substances, psychotropic substances are the same, just different names. Where do they act? They will act on the central nervous system to alter the state of mind of the users. So they walk straight into the central nervous system to cause all sorts of distortions. But there are different categories of psychotropic substances, and the cannabis, the tramadol, the heroin, fall into one category. But psychoactive, psychotropic are essentially the same. It is just that they work on central nervous systems. In terms of codeine in Kano, actually there was a survey that was done that because we assumed before 2019 at least that the activity was more in Kano, we found out that the activity is more in the southwest, especially Lagos. But irrespective of where the prevalence is high or not, it is lives being destroyed, families being destroyed, youths that are supposed to be Wole Soyinka, Chinua Achebe their lives being cut short. That is my own concern about psychoactive. So in terms of Kano, I believe there is a little bit of stemming down of it. The COVID-19 pandemic didn't help us at all because we were not at the borders for about a year and a half. 70–80% of our staff were not on duty, level 13 below, and then level 12 below. So this also contributed to what we are seeing right now. But before COVID-19 pandemic, it has dropped because we have data to prove that in NAFDAC. Then you ask another question. Sorry, I forgot the third one.
Okay, I know it was triple barrel. The issue I was talking about is the availability of these psychoactive or psychotropic substances in pharmacies and patent medicine stores. Why is NAFDAC raiding these shops, or what's NAFDAC doing?
Thank you so much for that. In the supply chain of medicines, we have NAFDAC and we also have Pharmacists Council of Nigeria. Pharmacists Council of Nigeria is in charge of licensing patent medicine dealers. We also have the C-34 Act, also gives us the power, if we get a tip or information, to go and close down any shop and seize their wares. But there were, for many years, Pharmacists Council of Nigeria and patent medicine dealers, they were in court because we have thousands and thousands of them. And these patent medicine dealers were brought in through higher level of different governments, of the state governments. So they are powerful. So for many years, even Pharmacists Council of Nigeria couldn't do much because the case was in court. So now they've started licensing them, but there are so many yet to be licensed. We now do joint raid with Pharmacists Council of Nigeria, following tips or even routine raids. So we are working closely better with Pharmacists Council of Nigeria. We just did our second raid, maybe about this year, maybe about 3 weeks ago or so. So it is not just NAFDAC. Also, when it comes to patent medicine dealers, it's also Pharmacists Council of Nigeria. It is multi-sectoral, multi-agency, and we have to work together. And I'm just so happy about what is happening with NDLEA. It gives me some peace of mind that the pressure on us will not be as much as it used to be, but nonetheless, we have to be on alert. All of us have to be on alert for the sake of our children. Thank you.
All right. Kingsley, I hope these psychoactive and psychotropic are not also being made locally, because you see some of them may be done in the Abu form. Now also, because as Madam said, most of these things work on the central nervous system, right? To perhaps alter the, the mindset of the user. Now, when it comes to any drug dealing, there's always a chain of supply. And well, from what I've learned in the past about national drug laws elsewhere, it's like when they catch you, they try to break the chain or block the chain and to ensure that all those in the chain are all arrested. Is that applicable here in Nigeria? And again, I want to add this to that. When it comes to drug use, as our guest advisor said that Kano, Lagos have the highest number of abusers of tramadol. Perhaps these are the two most popular states in Nigeria, right? When you say the use of tramadol, codeine, cannabis, how, in terms of demography, geographical locations, where do we get more use of tramadol and codeine, and where do we have more